Would it? Not that it matters because we don't need to say this, but which episode is this?
Episode
I've written
2.
it down. Episode 2.
Season 3.
The release date looked quite soon. I was like, oh God,
Yeah, good
that's
job.
not very far away.
Welcome to the Bookcast Club, a podcast for people who like to chat books. My name is Sarah. I'm coming to you from Trewisa in Australia, and I'm joined by Jenny, who has come to you from Norwich in the UK.
Hello.
See, Jenny, that's how it's done.
I literally practiced it.
This is the first time we've recorded a proper episode in absolutely ages. 6 months, I think.
Literally practiced the intro.
Is Jenny struggling?
Still cocked up.
I think I did tell you about this drama already, but in the most recent episode that I recorded, which is a Patreon episode, I just casually managed to stop my own recording. I just paused it. I remember when I went to edit it.
I don't even know how you do that.
When I went to edit it, I was like, why does my recording stop halfway? And then I just had this sort of memory of, I clicked pause. I don't know why.
You didn't pause bell.
No,
I don't even know how you've done that. I cannot see the option to do that in the software that we use.
I don't know either. I just have this memory of hovering my mouse over something and it said like pause and I clicked it. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It just goes to show you, you never really know what you're doing in a podcast. I was like, God, how long have I been doing this? 5 years? I still can't get my head around recording a whole episode. So anyway, we're all on our own battles here.
We are. I'm excited for today's episode. I can't decide if we've been overly ambitious, but we're going to go for it. Today, we are going to be comparing the movie Wicked to the book Wicked. So, to be more specific, part 1, the movie part 1, 2, about 2/3 of the way. No, maybe not even quite that, like halfway through.
Yeah, the parts of the book that line up with the first film.
Yes, we will end at the same point that the film ends on. Yeah. All that to say that we're going to struggle not to spoil the film. So we're obviously going to spoil the first film for you. We're going to assume that you've seen it. I think we're going to struggle not to spoil the book in its entirety, to be honest. What I'll try and avoid, and Sarah, you've not seen the musical, have you? So you might not even know what the plot points are in the second.
No, I haven't. I don't know what's coming.
So I will avoid spoiling part 2. So yes, Wicked part 2, please. The movie. But I don't think we can avoid spoiling the book. So that's just a little pre-warning that we're probably not going to be able to avoid spoiling the book. We have talked about this book previously on the pod. So our previous co-host, Chris, chose Wicked as one of his favourite books. And we challenged ourselves to read each other's favourite books. So one of the books that Chris chose was Wicked. And it's probably fair to say that me and Sarah weren't enamoured with it. And I don't know where the enthusiasm came from for us to therefore
I know what's wrong
do
with
this episode.
We bloody love you, Chris, but we both struggled through that book big time. Big time. I think we both, if I remember correctly, we both had to audiobook and read. I certainly did. I feel like you...
I know I mainly audiobooked it, and I will apologise to Chris and say that was not the way to read this book, having now stuck to the physical copy, which I did enjoy a lot more. The book, we're going to get into all this, but the book is quite complex, and it might just be my small brain, but I don't think I handled that very well in audio format. And I did enjoy it a lot more reading the physical copy. However, I was reading it thinking, because you stopped at the point that would be defying gravity in the film.
Did, Jenny, just admit, I did what we agreed to do. If you remember.
I know.
Don't say it like that.
However, I started reading it and I was like, I don't remember any of this. Like, not even a vague memory in the back of my head, some of it.
Neither did I.
And I was like, this is really bad. And I thought, I'm going to read the whole thing because there's plot points and things that come up in the film that I thought this has to have come from the book, but it hadn't by the point that we're talking about. So I've read the whole thing so that I can safely say which bits come from the book and which bits don't, because they don't come in the same order. But yeah, I'd completely blanked the majority of that book.
Yeah, same.
And I know I found it boring, but I didn't think my brain would completely wipe from my memory, I have to say.
I had exactly the same experience. I don't know what was going on. It was bizarre. So sorry, Chris. All the other books of yours that we read, we loved. But anyway.
We did.
What a weird.
Yeah.
It really goes to show like that sort of right book, wrong time thing. Like just how strong that is.
Definitely. My lasting impression of it is that it is slightly tedious, and I know that was our overall impression when we read it with Chris.
Yeah. But
I did enjoy it a lot more this time round, and I think having seen the film so recently, and now kind of I went to see the film twice, now kind of knowing that inside out, I can appreciate the book more. So
okay, good.
Yeah, I think maybe that's where our enthusiasm has come from to do this episode. Yeah, hopefully it'll be a good one. We better dive in because it might take some time.
Yeah, let's get into it. So I'll start with giving an overview of the book itself. So the full name of the book is Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, and it's by Gregory Maguire. So the original book, I'm just seeing when it actually came out because I didn't look that up, and I just realised that will be...
The 90s?
The 90s? Okay.
I want to say like 96 or something like that.
Okay, lovely.
Have a little
I thought it was a bit earlier, but...
Oh, I've written it in my notes. 1995.
1995. So this is a retelling itself of The Wizard of Oz. So it's very dark, it's very philosophical, and it takes the story of The Wizard of Oz and it approaches it in quite a different way. So it's reimagining that story, The Wizard of Oz, from the perspective of Elphaba, who is called the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz. So if you've seen like the original film, she's the one who's melting at the beginning. And the book is exploring what happened to her originally and how she became wicked. So do you want to tell us about the movie? You've written musical/movie, but yeah, tell us about the adaptations.
I will. I'm going to have to delve, and I'm going to have to go into its origins, I think.
Yeah, please.
A level Sarah's background noise.
Sorry, I'm trying to mute my microphone. Sorry.
No, it's nice.
Live in a chaos house.
Clocks chiming. Coffee being made. It's great.
Sorry. House is small.
I'm gonna delve into the musical because obviously the film is an adaptation of the musical as opposed to the book. So Wicked is a musical with music and lyrics by Stephen Schwartz, and it's a loose adaptation, very loose I'd say, of the 1995 book that Sarah has just introduced. The movie is based on that stage musical, not the book, and focuses on the lives of Elphaba and Glinda, played by Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. The film is directed by John M. Chu and written by Winnie Holtzman and Dana Fox. The movie adaptation of Wicked has been split into two parts, with the first movie culminating and mirroring that of the stage production, which if you haven't seen the interval comes after Defying Gravity. So the fact it's been split into those two films like that is because it's mirroring the musical. And part 2, Wicked for Good, will be coming out in November 2025. So the main reason that we've decided to compare these two is that they are really, really, really different. We're going to go into the main differences, but we've really had to structure this episode because they're so different that we definitely can't just be left to our own devices to talk willy-nilly about it.
Jenny's done a great job structuring the episode.
Yeah, we'll get into the differences and the similarities. But Sarah, if you want to explain the main plot of the book and perhaps the...
So I'm only going to talk about the first half of the book, basically. So it's a pretty long book. I think it's about 600 pages, something like that, I think.
Yeah, getting towards
that. Even though we're only talking about half of the book, it's still a good couple of hundred pages that we're actually discussing today. So the way that the entire novel works is that it's broken into 5 parts, and most of it is happening, if you know the film The Wizard of Oz, or the story of The Wizard of Oz, happening before that. So the first 2 parts of the 5 are what are in the first film. But as I say, it's like a 500-600 page book, so we're talking about still a couple of hundred pages today. So in part 1, It starts with, this is set in Munchkinland, which is where Elphaba is from. And this starts with her being born. So she has kind of a sort of difficult background. So her parents, her father, Frax, is a devout unionist preacher. So he is very, very religious, and he is, going about being a preacher. And his wife, Melina, so Elphaba's mother, she stays at home, and she's very, very unhappy. And so they live in Munchkinland together. And when they have Elphaba, she is born with green skin. And she also is born, she has very, very sharp teeth. And so she has this she's sort of like different, I guess you would say, to all of the other kids. So she is really, really shocking to her parents, and they're really, really distressed by her birth. And her, basically, the way that it kind of works is that the reason she's like this is because of the things that her mother was doing in her pregnancy and the lead up to her becoming pregnant. I think it's the sort of story, right? I found that a little bit confusing in the book. I think I was a bit overridden by the film there.
Yeah, it's the suggestion, isn't it, that she's like, well, she's lonely, isn't she? But essentially she's having...
Yeah, she's very lonely. So she befriends someone, and I think that's the sort of thing.
Extramarital affairs. She has more than one extramarital affair, and I guess that's what the suggestion is, that, yes, what she was doing was so bad that Elphaba was born the way she was.
So this obviously marks her as an outsider. So that's kind of the starting point of the book, is they have this baby, they're really horrified with it, they're sort of trying to figure out what to do. She looks odd because she's green, but then she also behaves really oddly, so she'll like bite people, and she
tries to bite herself, doesn't she?
Yeah, and she also really hates...
flashbacks now of her trying to like gnaw her own hands off.
Yeah, and so she's got these like really, really sharp teeth, so she's actually kind of a little bit dangerous in that respect. And she has this like huge aversion to water, so she won't go near water. And then in part 2, it jumps forward to where she's much, much older. So she's at university, at the local university, where she becomes friends with someone called Galinda, who is later called Glinda. So she's the person who eventually becomes the kind of the good witch, quote unquote, in The Wizard of Oz. So actually, they're kind of just doing like standard university stuff, but what happens essentially is that she becomes really politically aware, and she becomes aware of what's kind of happening in Oz and happening in the Emerald City. And what is happening is that in this world, animals are sentient, but not all animals are sentient. So the book kind of distinguishes between sentient and non-sentient animals. And these are just any animals, like a goat can be sentient. And it's just basically those ones who can talk. So the book distinguishes between animals with a lowercase a and animals with a capital A. And a big sort of political issue in this book is how much of a right those animals with a capital A has. So how much right does a talking animal have? And so she becomes really invested in this, and she becomes basically an activist. And what is happening is that the idea of animals with a capital A, those talking animals, having personhood, basically that idea is sort of going out of fashion. And she's really, really disturbed by what's happening around her. It's getting quite violent, and it's really coming to a head, this kind of issue, while she's at university. So she's very, very upset by this, and she's very, very much on the side that these talking animals, the sentient animals, should have personhood, basically.
Background of the movie/musical is really interesting. So I hadn't really known any of this until I researched for this episode. Yeah, I did wonder where Stephen Schwartz, like, at what point he'd gained inspiration from the book to, like, come up with a musical. And apparently it was on a holiday. So he was just on a holiday, and somebody on holiday with him, or somebody he met on holiday, was reading Wicked and told him what the book was and what the main plot was. And it was that put the seed in his mind as to, to come up that it would make a good musical. He hadn't read the book at that point. It was just literally the idea of, kind of rewriting The Wizard of Oz and giving the evil character backstory that made him come up with the initial idea to make it into a musical. But Gregory Maguire had sold the rights to Universal Pictures, so quite quickly after he'd written the book. I don't know what the success of the book was on release, but presumably quite good, because I think Universal in 1998, or maybe even previously, had bought the rights to the film off him, or bought the rights to the book to make the film. And Stephen Schwartz had obviously had the idea, been inspired by the idea of the book, then read the book and thought it would make a really good musical, but had realised that the rights had already been sold to Universal Pictures. So he had to go and persuade Universal Pictures that the better idea was that they would make it into a musical and not a film. So yeah, he had to persuade Mark Platt, who was the producer at the time, that his vision for a stage production was better than making it into a movie. And he managed to succeed in persuading him that that was a good idea, and Mark Platt then went on to co-produce the stage musical. The musical was written over a 1-year period, with the writers obviously mainly trying to condense and simplify and restructure the book and essentially create an original production rather than a straight adaptation of that book. There are key touch points in the book that are the same, but there's huge amounts of it that are very different. So obviously, Elphaba does go to Shiz University in the book. Her parentage is more explicit in the book. There's more about her upbringing as a child in the book. Her relationship with Fiyero is very different in the book to the musical. But the once he'd persuaded Universal to make a musical, he then had to go and persuade Gregory Maguire to sell him the rights to the book, and that a musical was a better idea than a film. So amazingly, he managed to persuade both those people, because obviously Gregory Maguire was probably envisioning some amazing movie that was going to be made. And it was I don't know how many, 25 years down the line.
The film The Wizard of Oz had been out for decades at that point, because that came out in the 60s, I think. So, yeah, kind of an easy sell, I guess. That's probably why Universal Pictures snapped it up, because it's kind of an obvious choice, I guess, right?
Yeah, for them to pick up.
Yeah,
and I think the way he sold it to them as being better off as a musical than a film was that because they needed to cover like the entire lifespan of Elphaba, that lends itself to musical really well, because the only way you can really do that in film is to either do flashbacks, which always end up being a little bit cliche and cheesy. You can't, or voiceovers, which don't really work in film either. So the way he persuaded them was that musicals are basically lots of soliloquies about somebody's life and life events and things that are happening, and that to transfer the book to some sort of visual production is easier to do in musical form, because musical numbers lend themselves to soliloquy, and tonally you can get it right just through a song. So yeah, he managed to persuade them it was the right thing to do. And I did look up how much money Gregory Maguire must make.
Oh, he must make it
off.
Fuck ton.
I can't remember what the percentage is, but it's something like 6 or 7%. I feel like the musicals turned over well over £1 billion.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the longest running musicals ever, I think. It's one of the most successful musicals ever. I'm going to look it up. I mean, even if he's got 1% of the film, he'll be doing well.
Yeah. So this book that he wrote basically set him up for life through this musical production. The movie had been on the cards for years and years and years, and Mark Platt announced in 2012 that it was in development, aiming for a 2016 release. And then after a really long period of development, in 2016, it was announced that it would be released in 2019. So this went on for years, them trying to adapt the musical into a movie. It was put on hold while they released Cats, the movie, apparently, which I haven't seen because it's supposed to be terrible, even though I do like the stage musical. The date was set for 2021, and then obviously COVID hit. And the, what was the group? SAG?
Oh, the writer's strikes. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm going to get it right, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, the writers' strikes that happened in Hollywood also then delayed it. So that's why it's taken so long, well over 10 years, to bring the kind of movie adaptation of the musical to life.
Can I add some little things that I've just found out as some things that you've been
Please
talking?
do.
So in terms of how much money he makes, the figure that is on the internet is that overall all of these things have brought him over 95 million over time. Although that number might be him and Schwartz together. And then his net worth, the number I keep seeing is that his net worth is 12 million. Although what tends to happen, I think, with these figures is some random article gets published with one number and then everyone publishes the same number. So I'm seeing the number 12 million over and over again. But yeah, sort of take that with a grain of salt. But I mean, that it would comfortably be in the millions. It would have to be. Wicked has been running for so long.
Mm-hmm. It must be. Yeah.
Yeah, some other interesting things as I was just Googling. I was very off about The Wizard of Oz. That came out in 1939, so it didn't come out in the 60s.
I didn't correct you. I was like, yeah, 60s, whatever.
60s, I was like, I think it was earlier. It was much bloody earlier.
Yes, because what's her name's in it? Who's Dorothy?
Judy Garland.
But she's a child in it, isn't she? So yeah, maybe should have logically thought through that.
So some interesting points that I just learned about the actual original film, The Wizard of Oz. That film's really interesting, actually, the sort of what was happening on the set of that film. I actually, sort of as a side note, I read an article the other day that all 4 of the original cast members, like the sort of key cast members, had either very, very severe health impacts from that filming or died from the side effects of filming that because of the way that they filmed it with the paint and all that kind of stuff was horribly toxic. Even Judy Garland, because she was taking, anyway, weird stuff to stay a particular weight and all that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, Judy Garland's got a very interesting life.
Yeah.
Side note, but I would watch the film Judy if you want a little bit of insight into Judy Garland's like background. It's very good.
So 1939 is when the film came out, the original film, and the original novel that L. Frank Baum wrote, that came out in the year 1900. So we're 125 years later. That's pretty cool. And what stimulated the purchasing of the rights for this book was Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So that came out in 1937, and that was Disney's first, for people, Disney fans, that was Disney's first sort of full-feature animated film. So that film is a really big, important film in the movie world. So that came out in 1937. That was really popular. It was the first time that had been like this full adaptation of something. It showed that, you know, children's stories could be successful, fairy tales could be successful. And then, according to this article, that stimulated the purchasing of the rights to The Wizard of Oz, and then that became the film the year later. But it's pretty crazy. In 1937, the film came out. 1938, they bought the rights. 1939, it came out. Like, very different compared to the timeline of what's happening now.
Which I suspect with Wicked as well. That's probably the timeline that they would have chosen to follow.
Yep.
With that, too, I'd have thought. Yeah, it's really interesting.
I also just looked up when you were talking about how well it actually sold. It sold pretty well. The New York Times were very critical of it, but apart from that, it was pretty well received. That's the Wicked, the book, in 1995. I also had just seen that it's been banned in Texas last year. So it's one of the...
Oh, really?
Yeah, adding to the increasingly long list of banned books in the US, because it supports and promotes gender fluidity, apparently. So
does it?
Well, I don't think these books have to actually have things in them to be banned, Jen. But
now you've said it, it does briefly. I mean, we're going to get onto characters, aren't we? So maybe we should do this now. Yeah. Yeah, well, let's start with Elphaba.
So Elphaba's the witch, or the Wicked Witch, the Green Witch.
She's the Green Witch, yes. And we spend a lot of time with Elphaba as a child. You know, like you said, part 1 is completely dedicated to her childhood, which obviously isn't reflected in the film necessarily. In the film, she's born. There's a flashback to her being picked on as a child. But you spend a lot of time with her as a child in the book. And even the simple descriptors of her when she's born, like you were saying about her having really sharp teeth. I think she bites the maid's finger off at some point, and they have to babies have to wear mittens anyway because they scratch themselves, but she has to have her hands kind of bound because she's trying to gnaw her own hands off. So yeah, it's even from the very start, the whole tone of the book is a lot darker than the movie is.
Can I talk about that? I don't know if we're doing a sort of book first film thing yet, but I thought the cutting out of it in the film was smart, to be honest. Like, you sort of get the background. I don't think it's really needed. Not that I think it should have been cut out of the book, but I thought that decision in the film was a good one.
Yeah, I've put at the end, like, if we think, have a little discussion about whether we prefer it as a musical adaptation.
Yeah, all right, I'll be quiet.
Yeah, so maybe hold your thoughts on the cuts.
All right, are you going to cut that?
Cut it out. Elphaba is, so in the film, she's quite angry in the book from the get-go. Like, she's quite an angry, angsty character right from the start. And I feel like that isn't as explicit in the book. Like, she's quite anti-establishment right from the start. Like, she's quite anti what her father does for a living. I feel like they set the scene really early on in the book as to her growing up to be quite different to everybody else, you know, despite the fact that she looks different. Yeah, whereas in the film, she's kind of, I don't know, she's got a bit of spunk to her, but she's not, I don't know, she's quite angry in the book.
Yeah, I think that some of that is also down to the writing, because the writing is quite chaotic. You know what I mean? And the way that he kind of writes scenes, that was something I really didn't like in the original. When I originally read it, I still don't like it. I find the writing in this to be so oddly dramatic. Like, all the characters are quite shouty, and it's just like, blah! So that, like, I'm sort of thinking, especially in part one, when they realise that Elphaba is green, and everyone's just kind of like yelling at each other the whole time. But it's just to me, it just felt really oddly dramatic. It didn't feel like sort of well-written tension, if that makes sense. It just felt very shouty. And I felt like they were just trying to create tension by getting everyone to yell at each other rather than actually creating tension. So yeah, Elphaba is very much like that, as you're saying, but I just feel like the writing is quite chaotic. So all the characters end up feeling like quite chaotic. That's my main sort of takeaway about the writing of the book. Actually, it just feels abrupt and chaotic. So the characters, sometimes you're like, what? So sometimes they feel quite like dramatic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. So Elphaba, because I couldn't remember the book at all, I was quite surprised that in the book she's always going to Shiz University. Like, she goes to university first.
That's extremely different than in the film.
Yes. In the film, she's like escorting her sister there, isn't she? So Nessa Rose is going to Shiz University.
Yeah, I thought we weren't allowed to be talking about the film at this point.
Oh. No, I don't know. The character comparison. Yeah. No, that's right. That's fine.
Oh, so you're allowed to do it. All right.
No, you were getting into... I'm trying to save the yes, it's better as a musical stuff to the end.
Okay, got it.
We can talk about the film in terms of comparing the two of them.
So yeah, I think Elphaba, to summarise, in the film she's a bit softer than in the book. In the book, she's a bit more. She kind of gets more like that, I think, in the film, but in the book, she kind of starts off like that more from the beginning. So there's sort of less of a change so far from the sort of first half of the book. There's been less of a character change, I would say. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd say the character change is almost not really there, to be honest, until much later on in the book. And whereas the film obviously builds up to that point in the Emerald City and the point where she sings Defying Gravity, and that's where the big switch in character change happens. Whereas in the book, it's really subtle, and we'll talk about actual like plot points that have kind of changed later on. But I did find it interesting that in the film, obviously she's escorted Nessa Rose to Shiz, and she's shown hints of her magical powers, and that's why she's asked to go. Whereas in the book, that's always the path that she's going to follow. Like, she's the one that goes to university first. Nessa Rose follows her in like a couple of years' time because she's the younger sister. And actually, she doesn't show much magical. Like, she isn't that magical in the film. No. She's actually quite crap at it. She's not the one who does the sorcery, which I thought was an interesting change. Yeah.
Yeah, so should we talk about Galinda then a little bit, perhaps? Because her character as well is very different between the book and the film.
Yeah. she's surprisingly not really in the book very much.
Well, yeah, it's sort of but there's also parts where she is in it. It's odd. It's just sort of she sort of crops up for a bit, then she's in it very strongly, and then she disappears for a while. It's not that balance, I would say, in that way. But yeah, no. Glinda in the book. So there's there's this sort of rivalry at the university in the film about who's the better sorcerer. Elphaba's really talented in the film. Glinda's not. In the book, that's not happening. They're both doing sorcery, I think, but they're both pretty standard students that I think Glinda's pretty good.
Yeah, I think
that's kind of about it.
I think Elphaba specialises in something else. So he only starts to show like more magical abilities much later on in the book. Whereas in the film, it's made out that she has those kind of abilities right from the start, and that's the power that they want to harness, isn't it? Yep. The Madame Morrible and the wizard that's what they've spotted in her, and that's what they want to use her for.
Yep.
And that is not how it plays out in the book.
Yeah, that's what kind of motivates that whole element of the plot, and so that's sort of missing from the book. Glinda's character is very funny in the film. And that is not.
Yes.
That's not the case in the book. She's like a fairly.
I felt like there was hints of it though. I wish I'd underlined them, highlighted them. There's like one-liners that she says that I'm like, I can see how they built her character from just these little snippets of her.
They did it really well, I think.
It was a really good choice to make.
Yeah, I think so. So her character in the film is frankly great. She's just sort of like really brilliantly comical character, and in the book there's little bits of it, as you say. I agree, which is good because Elphaba is such a sort of dramatic and serious person,
hard character. Yeah.
So she adds this sort of tiny bit of more like a lighter relief.
Yes, that's Glinda. Let's do some of the supporting characters. So Nessa Rose, go for it.
So yeah, very big difference between Nessa Rose in the book and the film. In the book, she's basically a sort of side character she does stuff that's interesting, but she's not really. In the film, she really represents a point of tension, and she also is the person through whom a lot of things happen. So she's very different to Elphaba. Her entrance, Elphaba's entrance into Shiz University happens purely because of Nessa Rose. The reason that Elphaba is at the university in the first place is because she's taking her little sister there. So Nessa Rose, is her little sister. And in the film, she kind of, is this sort of character through whom a lot of plot points happen, and then she ends up sort of becoming part of their group. And in the book, she just basically she's there and she becomes part of their group, and that's about it. She's a cool character, and she, has relationships with all of these other people. But she's not the same. She's very, very different. She doesn't represent the same kind of, she's not that sort of the same critical person as she is in the film, because in the film, she really is the center point piece for a lot of attention. And in the book, she just isn't really. And in the book,
she's like devoutly religious, isn't she?
I think so.
And she continues to be throughout. Yeah, that's kind of her main character trait, is she's supposed to be this deeply religious character taken after her father. Yeah, she doesn't really play a massive role in it, other than obviously she becomes the wicked witch of the East. So she is the witch that Dorothy ultimately squashes with her house.
Is that Nessa Rose? I thought that was Elphaba.
That is Nessa Rose.
But he's green in the book. Oh, no, there's a revenge. That's right. I haven't seen The Wizard of Oz for ages. You're right. There's two of them.
So at the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, that's where Dorothy gets the shoes from. Yep. It's because the wicked witch of the East has been killed by her house in the tornado.
Why didn't you correct me talking about this film at the beginning? Don't let me talk shit, Jen.
You didn't get that bit wrong.
I? Okay. Well, hopefully I didn't.
No, I just corrected you if you got something wrong at the start. Yeah, so that is Nessa Rose. So she's the one that is killed at the start of the film, The Wizard of Oz. Yeah, I won't spoil
The Wizard of Oz.
Wicked.
Oh.
But The Wizard of Oz, she's definitely the one that gets squashed by the house at the start.
I hadn't never put that
Dorothy
together.
takes her shoes, which is the main plot point in the book Wicked, when Elphaba, at the end of The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy throws water over the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes, that's true.
She is killed. And that happens at the end of the book Wicked, that the whole scene plays out like it does in the film.
Okay.
So that's what he's rewriting, is how it happens in The Wizard of Oz. And it's very much centered around those shoes that...
Yeah, okay.
The magic shoes
the red
that
shoes.
Nessa Rose is wearing. Yeah.
Right, okay. God, I hadn't put all this together.
They're silver in Wicked and they're red in The Wizard of Oz. I don't know why. But yes, that's the whole story, is that Dorothy ends up with the shoes. They're magical. They have magical powers. And Elphaba she wants them back because they were hers. Yep. They were promised to her if Nessa Rose was to ever die. So that's that kind of main plot point, which is huge. Like, obviously, I've just explained it to you, and it sounds like a huge spoiler because it's a huge plot point. But actually, it's really subtle in the book because she's not really in the book that much.
No.
And in the book, Elphaba, Glinda, and Nessa Rose are asked to be, I did write it down, adepts for the different regions in Oz as some kind of like political move to like keep the peace because everything's going to shit and everybody's kind of like revolting.
Yep.
And Elphaba's obviously like, hell no. But as the book goes on, it becomes clearer that Glinda and maybe Nessa Rose have possibly agreed to that. But yeah, Nessa Rose is kind of like a bit, yeah, like you said, she's kind of a side character. So yeah, she's definitely a bigger part in the film. And she has no arms in the book. That's her main distinguishing feature. She has no arms.
Yeah, it's an odd character choice. So yeah, in the film, she's
a weird one.
In a wheelchair. So a lot of the sort of tension points that I was referring to before are about sort of her mobility and like helping her get into places and
like independence.
Yeah, her wanting to be independent, and that's why Elphaba is there at the beginning to help her sort of get into the university and whatnot. But yeah, in the book, she's chaotically has no arms. I was like, okay,
yeah,
sure. So yeah, wheelchair made much more sense.
Yes, it did make more sense. It definitely works better.
Yes, it's a bit more salient.
And then obviously a few of the other supporting characters. So Bok, surprisingly, again in the movie, is kind of not much of a character at all. But Bok has like a whole section to himself in the book, which I found really bizarre on a reread. I was like, oh, right, he's got a whole backstory that they've gone into that now I can't really remember the details of. So I'm going with it's not overly important.
No, I was very bored by it, to be honest. I was like, oh, yeah. I was very influenced by the film because I watched the film before I read the book.
Yeah. But like Bok and Elphaba in the book have a really close friendship. They both work for Dr. Dillamond one summer, like they don't go home for the summer and they work for Dr. Dillamond doing some of his research. So they have a much closer relationship, and there's a whole section in the book from Bok's point of view in terms of what that relationship looks like and how that develops. Fiyero is obviously like some stud in the film, like he's quite hot. In the book, not so much. Which again, on a reread, I was like, oh, he's a bit of a nerd. Okay, yeah. Bit of a nerd, embarrasses himself, which I found really funny. Yeah, and then the wizard is quite different as well in the book. Don't really see him at all, and he's not don't know if you ever see him as a true presence. I think you always see him through his like contraptions and stuff that he uses. You know, that he's that big metal head at one point, isn't he? In the book, he's some sort of like skeleton or something, and you never really see his true form. Whereas in the film, obviously, you do, and he's a much warmer character. The whole film is a lot warmer and softer.
Yeah, it is. Definitely.
In the film, he's very dark and has very dark motives. And again, all of that is very explicit from the start, that there's unrest in Oz because of what the wizard's doing. And that's not apparent in the film, really, until near the end of Wicked Part 1, does it become apparent kind of what his motives are and what he's up to.
I don't find him a very compelling or interesting character, to be honest with you. Oh, it's just like, whatever.
Yeah, so that's the character comparisons. I think they're all very different.
They're all very, very different. Very much so. So it's sort of to sum, the film has kind of pivoted the focus. Changed the relationships a little bit, a lot actually, and it also has softened a lot of the characters and made them, it's sort of a bit lighter just overall. It just kind of lightens it up, warms it up, that kind of stuff. That's what happened to a lot of the characters.
Musicalifies it.
because the book is quite dark it's throughout, and it's quite dramatic.
Yes. Yeah, so you've touched on the fact that the focus of the movie is quite different. I'd say the book very much focuses on like political unrest in Oz. It's got a much, I don't know, I feel like it's a much more nuanced, is somebody born evil or is somebody evil through circumstance in their life? I feel like that's a lot more nuanced in the book. It's a little bit more black and white in the film.
Yeah, very much so. The book is very much sort of talking about wickedness as an idea, I would say, more of a philosophical idea. The book is quite philosophical, and he's definitely trying to get at this in a more conceptual way, I would say. And it's more thinking about inherent wickedness and this kind of thing. The film is more talking about like good character, now bad character. That's kind of the extent of it, I would say, in the film.
Yeah.
It does attempt to have things like you sort of have sympathy for Elphaba, her ideas, the way that she becomes wicked in the book. In the film, they are trying to add there's sort of elements that sort of accumulate over time. There's sort of like bullying moments and things that happen to her as a child. But the way that the flip happens in the film is very dramatic. It's just like, oh, this is it's more kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Now she's, it's very extreme. I think, having not seen the second half of the film or the musical, so I assume it's going to be it seems like it's building up to be quite an extreme flip in the second half, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah. So the more nuance in the book for sure, which makes sense. There's more time to sort of build it up.
And like we said when we were talking about Elphaba's character, that sense of unrest and angst is there from the start, and it just builds and builds and builds. And because obviously it's a long book and different things happen to her in her life, the stuff that happens to her in her life in the book that I feel logically makes more sense that she ends up at the point that she does. Whereas in the film, it is a lot softer. It all happens very quickly, even though you can imagine how quickly the musical moves, because the musical's all done in like an hour and a half. So like all these major plot points happen really quickly. But obviously the nature of it being a musical is they can add that drama and tension. Like I said before, with musical numbers, like it lends itself to that. Whereas in the book, it's more of a slow burn. And things happen in her life that add up to who she ends up being and becoming. There's much more of a focus on, the film really is about Elphaba and Glinda's relationship.
Yep.
Galinda. That's not the case in the book at all. And I like that spin on it. I think it was a really good friendship for them to have developed. Because, like I said, there's hints of it in the book, and you kind of want Gregory Maguire to just delve into it a little bit deeper. Like, there's the whole scene in the film where they go into that Oz Dust ball, which doesn't happen in the book, but they go into the ball, and Galinda, as she is at the time, like tricks her into wearing that hideous hat that she has. And in the book, she gets like tricked into going to visit her. Do you remember they're in like
they're in her house.
Yeah, they're in her house, and like her Galinda's friends have sent this message to Elphaba telling her to come and stay for the summer, and Elphaba rocks up and they're like, I didn't invite you. So like a moment like that does happen in the book, but it doesn't then develop into this like really lovely friendship that they have in the film.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's a big change. That's probably the biggest change, I'd say, is that's the main focus of the film.
The focus of the book is really about the sort of animal stuff that I was talking about in part 2. So this political, social idea about sentient animals with personhood. That's kind of the driving force behind a lot of what's happening. And so sort of what sort of takes her to the end, to the Emerald City in the end, is basically this issue. Whereas, in the film, it's more about Elphaba and Galinda Elphaba being very talented, them being friends. It's sort of
summoned.
Yeah, she gets summoned for her magical abilities, which is good because I think if the way that it happens in the book is quite brutal.
It's horrible.
It's pretty horrible. So
poor Dr. Dillamond.
Yeah. We did say we would spoil the first half, didn't we?
Yeah, we're going to spoil So he's taken away in the film, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's one of the lecturers who's an animal in the university. So he's kind of a controversial character because of all of the aforementioned political turmoil around animals. So in the film, he just gets taken away, or he's sort of dismissed, and all the students are quite upset. And in the book, he's brutally murdered. And so that's what's driving Elphaba, is sort of revenge for Dr. Dillamond, or sort of wanting to seek justice, I guess, for Dr. Dillamond. That's the sort of motivating thing. So, yeah, her and Elphaba's relationship, Elphaba and Glinda's relationship, and their sort of rivalry and that kind of stuff is not so much a part of it. Which, yeah, it's much more focused on, like, philosophy than in the film. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a good change. I think.
It's a nice change. It's a pleasant change. It's like we've talked about the fact that Elphaba being at Shiz is totally different in the book compared to the film. It's her destiny, I guess, in a way, in the book. Like, it was always the plan that she would go to university, and it's much more of a plot point in the film, actually. Yeah, she's escorting Nessa Rose, and she accidentally shows her magical powers to Madame Morrible, and that's how she gets asked to kind of enroll at Shiz. The book, like Sarah said, it really neatly ends on the same point. So part 2 ends at the same point that the film ends. So when she sings Defying Gravity in the film, you can see the clear distinction in the book where that bit would technically slot in. However, in the book, it's so quiet, so subtle. She goes to meet the wizard. He pisses her off. She says, "I'm not going back to university." And they part ways. And that's it. There is no Defying Gravity.
Yeah. I was like waiting for the tower, like when she's running up to the tower. I'm like, oh, was that it? I just sort of feel like
trying to escape in the hot air balloon.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I turned the page and it was part 3. I was like, what?
I'm off.
She's like, oh, that's annoying. Storms off. Whereas in the film, it's an absolute climax. It's a very dramatic scene.
Yes.
Yeah, that was that's the biggest difference, I think. And also in the film, in that scene, Defying Gravity, that is basically where her change kind of culminates. And in the book, basically nothing happens apart from the wizard is a bit annoying.
And the build up to the Defying Gravity moment. So obviously, in the movie, they go to the Emerald City to speak to the wizard about the fact that all this awful stuff is happening to the animals. And Elphaba is tricked into reading the Grimoire, which is the, magic book that the wizard has.
Yeah, something like that.
And she's tricked into reading it, and one of his guards that's a monkey, can't remember his name. He has a proper name. He is in the book. This is why I wanted to finish the book, because I was like, does the Grimoire and the monkey appear in the book? And they do, but it's in a very different context. So the wizard does not have the Grimoire at the same point as he does.
Yeah,
in the
such
book.
That's such a different plot point, isn't it?
Yeah, she finds the Grimoire when she goes into like hiding, let's say. But obviously, in the film, the wizard has it. He tricks her into reading it, and he tricks her into reading a spell that makes his monkey guard about wings. Is he called Chistery? He's called Chistery. So his main monkey guard is called Chistery, and in the book, she has a monkey called Chistery later on who will develop wings from what he chooses to do, but it's much darker, so it's not in the same way.
Oh God.
And that's what builds up to it. So she gets tricked into sprouting wings on a monkey, and she's horrified by what she's been tricked to do. She realizes that the wizard has no power, and she essentially legs it, and Madame Morrible and the wizard kind of evoke the citizens of Oz to be like, oh my God, she's awful. Catch that wicked witch.
Madame Morrible just insanely goes on basically a complete witch hunt, for want of a better phrase. It's ridiculous, to be honest. Like the character pivot from Madame Morrible is just, for me, that's the dumbest part of the film. I was like, yeah, okay. It was very like musically, I guess, if you know what I mean. It just
very
ridiculous.
musical theatre.
Yeah.
In the book, actually, Madame Marvel's character is like, she's definitely in a grey area right from the start. Yeah. She's not presented as somebody who's like necessarily a good person. Like, you kind of get hints of the fact that she's up to something right from the beginning. She gives like lectures that are definitely propaganda for, destroying animals. So yeah, she's definitely not. No point she's portrayed as like a good person.
Yeah, that's much better in the book, I would say. Much better than the film.
Yeah, they've kind of brushed over her as a character, haven't they? Other than she's like the wizard's sidekick, evil sidekick or something in the film. So yeah, the build up to Defying Gravity in the film, I found it interesting that it used elements from the book just in a different order. It made me really think about how fascinating it is to maybe adapt something from a book to a movie or a musical or whatever, where you have to kind of like pick and choose what you want to and restructure something so that it works. Because in my head, I don't think a straight up adaptation of the book would necessarily work. Maybe it would now with like the increase in like big epic TV series. Like, it could work now if they chose to make the book into a TV series now. Maybe they could faithfully adapt it. We quite like dark television series now, I think, more than we did in the mid-90s.
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, I guess at the time when, they wouldn't have got the green light for a TV series like that, it does feel like the movie would have been a reach for them to do. But yeah, so Defying Gravity, very different, very subtle, very subdued in the book.
Yeah, it's sort of yes, exactly. Agree.
I was like, oh, right, she's just left.
Yeah,
all right.
Me too. I was like,
oh. Glinda says goodbye.
So shall we talk about what we actually thought of the film?
Which do we prefer? Conversation?
Yeah, I really preferred the film. Obviously. So the book, in terms of what I think of the book, I just find it's very imaginative. I like what he's trying to do with these kind of philosophical ideas about rights and difference and morality and that kind of stuff. In terms of as a reader, I find the writing to be too chaotic for me, to be honest, and it is very plot driven, which isn't my thing at all. So the book is just plot point. It tries to do character development. There is a bit of character development in there, but
interestingly, the second half isn't. Like, so I found it, because when I read the first bit up to the point that I thought I would stop at, I thought I'd have to apologise to Chris about my opinions the first time I talked about it. But then I continued to finish it, and actually from that point on, I would say it gets less plot driven.
Okay, cool,
and
good.
Considering it's more than half the book left to go, it did get a little tedious from that point on.
So it's a book in two halves, very much. Okay, so my take of the first half is I find the writing quite chaotic. I don't really like how dramatic the book is. I like some elements of it. I like the ideas of it. Yeah, it's not hugely my thing overall, but I think it's very creative and I think it has interesting ideas. That's my summary of the book.
Which is obviously what Stephen Schwartz thought, because I think Gregory Maguire was quite happy with how he adapted it into a musical. And I prefer the musical. I saw the musical before I read the book. I loved the film. The musical is really good, and I really like the musical numbers in it. I can't really remember what happened, and I loved that the film was able to like flesh out their time at university, all those kind of bits that I really, really like. So I loved the film, and I saw it more than once, and me and the kids are obsessed with the soundtrack.
Nice.
Honestly, it's on repeat in the car all the time. Yeah, so I prefer it as a musical. And I think, one, I'm just a musical gal, so I just like a musical anyway. But two, I do think it picked the best points from the book and the best characters from the book. I think it chose really well which bits of it fleshed out and which bits it didn't. Like you say, her early life, they don't really reflect on her early life so much, because is it all that relevant? I don't know that it is, and they probably decided it wasn't, other than the kind of plot around who who her parents are.
Yeah, and I think the like the concept of the fact that she's had a hard life because she's different and she was made fun of, it's pretty salient. You know, you don't
quite
need
obvious, isn't it?
People are going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Doesn't need to be hashed out in a whole heap of detail. I agree. I thought so. I'm also I haven't seen the musical, but the film is quite close to the musical. Like, right? That's the general thing.
The film is. They've made a few tiny changes, but it pretty much is a straight up adaptation of the musical, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the choices that they made are really, really clever and really, really sensible. There's a couple of elements I maybe would have liked to see a bit more of the darkness about the animal sort of stuff kept in there a little bit more, because I think it's a little bit too light in the film. But I generally think it's really, really clever, and that they take a lot of the stronger parts of the book and they do a really, really good job with it. So yeah, I really like this adaptation, actually. I think it's really, really excellent.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I wasn't sure if you were going to. I wasn't sure how this conversation would go if you hated the film. So yeah, I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, and it's very much worth seeing on stage. I had the same visceral reaction to Defying Gravity at the theatre as I did when I saw the film. I bawled my eyes out, which I did at the theatre, where obviously it's the interval. So then the lights all came on, and I was like, well, that's embarrassing. Yeah, so I loved it. It is one of my favourite musicals. So yeah, to see it in film was just quite special for me.
Yeah, I think the film is. I really, really like the film. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. One of the things I really liked about the film was how comical it is. Like, I thought the way that they, especially Galinda, and Ariana Grande plays her incredibly well, I think.
She's great.
So the sort of like self-referential, more meta aspects of the film I thought were really, really good. And yeah, Ariana Grande plays her amazingly well. I was so impressed, really, with how well she sort of threw herself into the role. And obviously Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba is amazing. They're incredible as a pair.
I'm obsessed with her in real life. Like, I follow Cynthia Erivo.
Yeah, she's very cool in real life. I really like her.
I'm just obsessed with her. Everything about her. I'm like, what's her skincare routine? Like, what's her workout routine? Like, I want to know everything about her.
How does she look?
She's just awesome.
Yeah, she's very cool.
And I feel like I thought it was really a really good decision to cast a black actor in the role of Elphaba, because obviously the whole reason why she's ostracized is because she's different, and I just felt like that was really well done and a really good choice. I feel like Cynthia Erivo, she's just brilliant in it, and she really portrays, and I think she's done this better than some of the actresses I've seen play her on stage, is that she really portrays that turmoil that she's going through really well. And her singing Defying Gravity is one of the best ones I've seen in terms of like how emotional she is. And like, even though we've said the build up to it is a bit nuts, she manages to make that song really tell the whole story. And I guess that's the whole point that Stephen Schwartz was trying to make when he's saying that musical lends itself to those big events. Like, in one song, you can portray like a huge amount of story. That's where I think it really works. And that's why I enjoyed it so much, I think.
Yeah, I think it's I really, really like the film. I'm really excited for the second one to come out, actually.
We've done really well because we have not really spoiled anything to do with the second part of the book or the second film or anything. I am very intrigued to see what you make of the changes book to movie in the second one.
Do you think I should watch the film first?
Or go see the musical?
Finish the book? I'm not going to go see the bloody musical, Jen.
It's so different. You could read the book. It's not going to spoil it for you. I'd finish the book again. Yeah. The musical is so different. Like we've said with the first part, it's even more so in the second part. So I'll be very, obviously, like, we're kind of telling you guys now that we will do Wicked for Good versus part 2 of the book this time next year, I guess, because it will come out in November. So we will repeat this process and compare the next film.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued to see, considering everything we've said about the fact that it's softer and lighter and it's a musical. So at the end of the day, it's always going to be very intrigued to see what you think of the changes they made in the second part.
Okay, cool. I'm excited. Yeah. Good one. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought, please, of the film or the musical or the book. We would love to hear your thoughts. If you would like to get in contact with us with questions, ideas, feedback, recommendations, anything like that, we are the Bookcast Club at outlook.com. You can also follow us on Instagram. We are at Bookcast Club, and on TikTok as well. But we also have a newsletter, so you can sign up to our newsletter. The links are in the show notes for that, where we have new releases, more reviews, podcast recommendations, etc. And you can also check out our Patreon, as we mentioned before, and we encourage you to sign up to the 7-day free trial if you want to hear some of our bonus episodes. That is absolutely fine. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that. We did well. Go us.
Yeah, it was really good fun. We did really well. Thanks for the structure. You were an MVP there. Well done. And we will talk at you again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.